All right, guys, welcome to 1050 and welcome, Garrett. This whole video is just for you. So you're the only person that's ever going to see it. So, 1050 through Utah State is very strange. Colleges are super protective of what we teach, how we test, all of that, with the exception of Math 1050 from Utah State. It's really strange. You have to have a 23 on your math ACT or they won't let you register. So if you don't have that, I'm sorry. I guess we could have you take the Alex placement test, but other than that, there's nothing we can do. So the college tells me they don't care what I teach, how I teach, what textbook I use, if I use a textbook. They don't care how I grade. They don't care about any of that. What they do care about are 6 tests that they call competency based exams, CBEs. And I got the hiccups. Their only rule for 1050 is every student has to pass all 6 CBEs with at least 90% or higher. So these tests are on Canvas. So you will have an Emory High Canvas and you will have a USU Canvas that you log in using your A number. And if you don't have an A number, we'll get to that later. And you can take these CBE tests as many times as you want. So for test 1, there is a bank of questions, and you will log in and you will take practice tests until you are good enough to pass the test, and then you will take the test. Every test is 10 questions long, and you have to get at least 9 questions right, or it doesn't count. Now, I honestly like the tests, but I hate their rule. I think it's stupid, and I have complained so many times, and it falls on deaf ears. So let's say you get every single assignment handed in. So you have 100% in assignments, and you pass tests 1 through 5 with 100%. And then at the end of the year, you take test 6, and you get an 8 out of 10. If you don't pass that test, I cannot give you a grade higher than a D. Yeah. And in college, if it is a required class, you have to get at least a C or it doesn't count. So I took trap shooting and hockey and all sorts of fun classes. I took a tap dance class. Those, if you get a D minus, you get your credit, your elective credits. But in a required class, you have to get at least a C. So even though you have all your assignments done and you have 100% on all the tests and you got an 80% on test 6, even though your grade says 99.9%, on your college and high school transcript, I have to put a D on your grade. Now, it happens every year. There are some kids that don't pass the tests. Are the tests hard? Not really. Some of them are, it's easy to make a mistake, but you guys can learn all of the tests. And the good news is tests 1 through 5 are unique. So, test 1 has nothing to do with test 2 and on and on. But test 6, the final, is actually 10 questions taken from the other 5 tests. And it's not random. It's not like 10 random questions from all 5 tests. It's like question 2 from test 1 and question 3 from test 2 and question 5 from, so you know what they are. So really you only have to learn 50 questions and then make sure that you retain them long enough to take the last ones. The college claims that this has really helped people pass the higher math. I don't know. I don't like the rule. I like the tests. I wish they would drop the rule down to 80%. That would be nice. Yes. You can take them an infinite number of times. Mm-hmm. All of them. So I had a girl a couple years ago take test 2 42 times. Now, I broke it. What happened? Something went wrong. Oh, I must have leaned on this. Well, don't do that. Okay. Sorry, Garrett. So, did it really take her 42 times? Not really. I think what she learned was there, like question 5, had 3 different like versions, and she only knew how to do one of the 3 versions. And so she would log on and look at that question, and if it wasn't the right question, she would submit and go and log on again. So she probably took the test 20, maybe 25 times. That's rare. Some tests are harder than others for sure, um, but they're all doable. The trouble is kids get behind, and I had a kid who probably spent 25 hours the second to last week of school and the last week of school taking tests because his mom said, "You are passing these." And in fact, he graduation morning he came in and was taking, like, he stayed 2 extra days and was taking that test, and he eventually passed it. He got his credit, so that was awesome. But don't get behind. So by Christmas, you want to have passed test 1 and 2 and maybe 3. Just don't get behind. Now there are only 6 people in this class and 1 in Green River, so I'll have plenty of time to help you. But none of the tests are that daunting. There is one question on 5, and it might also be on 6 that's really, really weird, but I can teach it to you. I can teach everything to you. Now, um, last year we had a couple kids, 1 in Green River and I think 4 in this class, who wanted to take trig. And my only requirement is that you pass the test. The college doesn't care how I grade anything. So they went extra fast and they passed off 1050 in either January or February. So 1050 is kind of a big math class. I think it's 4 credits. And then it's college algebra, so it's all the variables. And then the next class is 1060, which is trig, and it's much smaller. So I had 5 kids last year that did 1050 and 1060. And with a class this small, we could do it. Now, some of you probably aren't interested in 1060, so we kind of need to make a decision. What do you want to do? Do we all want to try to shoot for 1050 and 1060, or do you just want to do 1050? What are your thoughts? As far as speed goes, uh, the college meets 4 days a week for 50 minutes for about 3.5 months. We're going to meet 5 days a week for 67 minutes for 9 months. So you will not have homework in this class. It just, if you stay on top of things, there's no reason why you should be doing homework at home. You'll get it all done in class. If we decide that we want to do 1050 and 1060, what I will do is spend more time teaching the tests and less time on the assignments. So I've gone through, we're going to use these old ratted books over there, and I have thrown out everything that's not on a test. If it's not on a test, I've chucked it, just so we have maximum time to spend on the tests. So we can actually cut out the entire textbook and just do tests. Like, that is a possibility if you want to do 1050 and 1060. Now, if you don't, then we will use the book and we'll go a little bit deeper into how that works, into how this algebra thing works. So anyway, thoughts? Um, so anybody besides Lily not want to do 1060? So 1050 is sort of the minimum college requirement, and they've actually restructured mathematics in college. So when I was in college, it was the minimum is 1050, and then some people could substitute 1030, but they didn't really tell anybody that. So every degree has a minimum general ed requirement. So if you get an associate's degree, you're basically just doing all your generals, none of your future career or whatever you want to study. You're not doing any of those classes. And like English did not require 1050. They said, hey, 1030 is good enough for us. And now 1030 is a viable option for many degrees, and it's stated as such. 1040 also works, and 1050 also works. So in some sense, 1030, 1040, 1050 are all equivalent. Now one is like algebra, one is statistics, and one is higher algebra. However, some college degrees require more mathematics. So, like a medical degree might require 1050. I don't know that that's the case, but you would need to look. So you could take 1030 and it would satisfy your general ed requirement, but it might not meet your degree requirement. Now, my degree had math requirements, but they were way beyond 1050. So 1060 would probably not be a general requirement for any or many degrees. I mean, it might be. There might be one that says, yeah, you need to take 1060. Um, it's probably 1050 or Calc 1. A lot of degrees will require Calc 1. And Calc 1, the mathematics is not difficult. The subject calculus is super simple, but the trig eats people alive. The algebra is tough, but the trig is worse. So having a good trig sense in high school before you go to college is a really good idea. So if you decide to do 1050 and 1060, terms 1, 2, and 3 would be your college algebra grade, and then term 4 would be your 1060 grade. So let's say you get an A first term, and let's say we just do 1050. You get an A, and then a B, and then an A, and then an A. So your college grade would probably be an A. We average all those out. And the way that our contract with the college works is whatever your college grade is, I have to go back and change your high school grade to match. So if you get B plus A, then I have to go back at the end of the year and give you an A first term. Does that make sense? Because they have to match. All four high school grades have to match your college grade. So if you just do 1050, that's how it will work. If we do 1060, then we probably wouldn't finish 1050 until like the end of January. And so term 1 and 2 would be your 1050 grade, and then 3 would probably be 1050, and then 4 would be 1060. But 1060 is a lot smaller than 1050. I think it only has 4 tests. Um, but it's like 1050 is like 4.5 chapters and maybe 5 chapters, and trig is only 3. So it's much smaller. So if you don't need 1060, I mean, it's not going to count towards anything other than elective credits. It is a really cool class. Like Trig is amazing. Some of the things that they do in Trig are really cool. But I mean, if you don't want it, you don't want it. And you signed up for 1050, so I'm not going to force 1060 onto anybody. But the other option is we could try to get 1050 done by midterm, and then you'd be done, or by Christmas, and then you'd be done. So how many of you are leaning towards 1060? Don't know. Well, we don't have to decide today. That's the cool thing. Yep. Um, yeah. So I essentially taught 2 classes last year. I taught 1050 to the majority of the class, and then the other 4 I helped them pass the tests. Yeah. How many of you absolutely don't want 1060? And it's not going to be fast. Like it's not fast. Either way, you're not going to have homework. If we decide to go faster, we'll just spend less time on assignments. That's how it'll work. The tests are going to be the same either way. Um, but with 6 people, I honestly think we aim to do both. And then if 1 or 2 of you have to slow down, that's not a problem. hmm So I had 2 different roll sheets last year. I had a 1050 roll and a 1060 roll, and it's kind of a pain for me, but that's no big deal. That not a problem. So I I mean I think we kind of aim for 1060, and I don't believe in busy work. So if we're doing something and you guys get it, I don't see the point in handing it in. I mean, we'll just skip it. Yeah. What do you guys think? Lily? You got the ACT score. You can't be that bad. Right, right. Uh-huh. That is statistically improbable. I teach the stats class, so I could even calculate the probability. Very low. Very, very, very low. I could actually work that out, and it's extremely low. Well, I don't wouldn't call yourself a miracle. Not with the ugly face. All right. So I actually don't have anything to do with your like your log on for USU. How many of you have an A number already? Okay. So you'll need to register for USU, get an A number. I don't know how to do it. Talk to the counselors. It takes it takes a couple days for them, right, to send it to you. So if you don't get registered for the class, then you have to pay a huge fine at the end, like $400 to get registered. Yeah. So your registration is $50, but that's a one-time fee. And then you pay like $5 a credit. So I think this class will cost you 20 bucks, which is incredible. Because if you were to take this class over the summer, it would probably be $500. Yeah. Now if like the credits get cheaper. So like if you're taking like 4 credits might be 500 bucks, but 6 credits is only $500, $600. And then once you hit like 12 or 15, then they're if you take 14 or 15, it's the same price usually. Yeah, you'd pay 15 for 1060, but you'd get it done now, and it'll be way easier in a class of 6. Like if you are at all thinking that you're going to take trig later, you definitely want to do it in high school, because when you get to college, no professor wants to teach 1060. Like that's not why they're there. So it'll either be taught by a grad student with very little experience, or it will be in a class of 400 kids, and the professor will never learn your name. And so twice a week you go and listen to the professor lecture, and then once or twice a week you go in to a class this size, and some grad student or other lesser employee at the college will help you work through problems and grade your homework. So it's way better to take it in high school. So much better than it is in a college where you're in this enormous class. There are some classes in college with thousands of kids, like 2,000 kids. You go in an auditorium. Mm-hmm. They'll have an auditorium, 2,000 kids, like Biology 101, and the professor will teach twice a week, and then all of those 2,000 kids are assigned a TA once a week in 50-person classes, and that TA grades all your stuff. And if you have questions, you don't ask them in the lecture hall, you ask them to the TA. So, anyway, well, it's it's freshman year general ed classes in a big college freshman year are huge. Now I went to CEU, Utah State now, and that's a small school. So I didn't have a class over maybe 60 kids, and every professor knew my name, which was nice. And that's probably still the case over there. They don't have huge classes at USUE. But if you went to Logan, it's not uncommon to have 500 kids in your class. So when I went to BYU, I'd finished all my generals, and I didn't have a class over 25, except I took a film class. There maybe were a couple hundred kids in there. I took a hockey class. There were, I don't know, maybe 50, 60 kids in there. But none of my math classes were very big. All right. Um, so you'll need to get signed up for that. We're going to do some review stuff. And I've assigned you a Chromebook number. I actually didn't assign it. Your parents assigned it. There's a syllabus, but I I'm just not very picky on grades in this class because if you pass the tests, I give you an A. If you don't pass the tests, then you get a D. So we're going to hand in our assignments, but there are no due dates. Just if I assign something, just make sure you get it in because it will affect your Emory high grade until the end of the year. So if you get a D and a D and a D and pass all the tests, I'm going to give you an A. So technically, you don't have to hand anything in, but you don't want D's on your transcripts when you're applying for colleges in the spring. So yeah, there's a syllabus, but I'm super, super lax in this class, right? No due dates. Everything's worth 10. You get it done, you get a 10. Applications are usually due in the winter. Hmm. Yeah, you probably can apply now, but the last due dates usually aren't till January, February, March. So yeah. So you really want to do the assignments just to keep your high school grade up, but all that really matters in this class is that you pass the tests. Does that make sense? So I'm not going to bother with the syllabus. And really, if we're doing an assignment and you say, "Hey, we get it," we'll just move on. Like we'll just throw it away. I don't believe in busy work. Okay. All right. Oh, that doesn't look right. Let's see. I bet if I unplug and plug it back in. Wrong one. Come on. Come on. Fix. Whatever. Um, okay, so that's your Chromebook number. We're not going to have textbook numbers. We'll just pick one up. And actually, those books are wearing out and they don't print them anymore. So I think what I'm going to do is just upload pictures of them to the website so that if you want us to, like, I don't want you carrying around an old crappy textbook. No, if we do the 1060 route, we don't need to enroll until February. Yeah. And actually, we can start 1060 and no, because you want access to the tests. So it's 1060 doesn't take very long. I mean, you can get through it in just a couple months. But yeah, we don't. It's not even listed at the moment, so it won't even be an option until we need it. All right. Any other questions? Okay. Um, with this few kids, we should be able to just fly through it. So when we're in class, let's use all the time, and then you won't have any homework, and you won't have to. Oh boy, there were kids scrambling last year at the end, coming in before school, during lunch, after school. They'd come in during my prep, during weights. They would come in, and you don't want to do that. So let's stay on top of it. We definitely want to get 1 and 2 passed before Christmas. If we can do more than that, great. If you are already committed to 1060, let's just put you on that track. So, but really, I think we could all do it. That's my thought. I believe in you. So the tests, I'll work one version of every problem, and then I have recorded videos for every single problem. So if you want to start working on them, it's already up there. It's already on your Canvas. And the videos are in our Emory High Canvas. So if we go to stats, or no, 1050. There is a syllabus assignment in here. Don't worry about it. I mean, oh, there are 4 of them instead of 2. Don't worry about that. You don't need to do it. But if you go into modules, these are the chapters in the purple book. So chapter 0 is just a review. And then chapter 1 covers tests 1. Anyway, chapter 8 is really small. But inside the chapters are the problems that you need to do. So page 55, 1 through 49, and then there's a video of me teaching that lesson. Okay. So you don't even need me. I could just leave. And so you go through all those. Some of them span multiple days. Some of them there are 2 videos because I took 2 assignments and crushed them down. And then here in the CBE videos, so that is me working one version of every CBE 1 problem, and 2 and 3, and some of them take a little bit longer. So CBE 4 is split into 2 videos, and 5 is in 2, and then I did record a 6 last year, even though you can, actually what I did, I went through and cut the videos. I didn't record a new video, I just cut the old videos and then put the problems in there. So it's all in there. Okay, what other questions do you have? All right, so let's, no. So no notes and no graphing calculators. But there is graphing, but you're not allowed to use a graphing calculator. Well, it's kind of complicated, but it's not. So I have calculators in the back, so your Chromebook number and your calculator number are the same. And make sure you plug your Chromebooks in, because I've hired spies, 5th period, to spy on you guys. They're going to tell me if they're not plugged in. And the port and the Chromebook and the charger are all colored the same color, so you know which is which. And then you can squeal on 3rd period. Or no, this is 3rd period. 2nd period, people. All right, so if we go into modules, let's start on chapter 0. So come grab a book. And we don't have any racks. Usually we just kept them underneath the, but we can't. So we're going to start on page 29. So I've skipped 0.1 because you should all know that. And 29, so this says 29A, which means there are 2 assignments on the same page. And I try really, really hard to only give you the odd problems because the answers are in the back of the book. And I give you credit according to you finishing the problem and showing your work. Now, in some cases, there isn't any work to show. But if you just hand an assignment with nothing but answers, and it's stuff that you can't do in your head, then I'm going to give you a 0. All right, so factoring. Let's go back here. Come on. Okay. So if I had, well, let's start with, oh, I forgot. That's going to annoy me. So x squared minus 5x minus 6. How does that factor? Nope, it's minus 6. I'm not doing the one in your book. How does that factor? 2 numbers that multiply to be negative 6. So my options are 1 and 6 and 2 and 3. And they have to add to be negative 5. X minus 2 minus 3. Does that work? No. One of them has to be plus. So these do create a negative 5, but they don't make a negative 6. So it has to be a plus and a minus. So that would be 1 and 6. Okay. This is called a quadratic. These are called factors. Oh, there should be an x in there. And then if I change this to say y equals, or f of x equals, what are the roots? which is the place that the quadratic hits the x-axis. So we just set each of these equal to 0, and I get x equals -1 and x equals 6. So graphically, that's what this parabola would look like. Okay. Well, what if I had 2x squared minus 10x minus 12? I can pull a 2 out. Do I need the 2? It depends on what you're doing. So if I pull a 2 out, then I get x squared minus 5x minus 6, which looks awfully familiar. So 2 times x plus 1 and x minus 6. So these are all factors. If the problem says factor, then you need the 2. If the problem says graph, you need the 2. But if the problem says solve, or find the roots, or find the zeros, then the zeros are still just -1 and 6. What's the difference graphically between the original equation and this one? Yes. The one with the 2 in front of it is twice as tall. So it's going to look like this. Same roots, it's just taller. And it kind of looks skinnier, but that 2 actually doubles the size of the y value. It doesn't make it narrower, it actually makes it taller. So, what if I had, I better look one up, 11x equals 2x squared plus 12. What should I do? So I need to move everything to one side. Do I want to move everything to the left or to the right? Technically, it doesn't matter. Why is the right a better idea? Your x squared will be positive. Now, what if your x squared is not positive? Just change every sign, right? So if we subtract 11x, I get 2x squared minus 11x plus 12. Okay. I can't pull the 2 out. Well, I could. Oh, that should be 12. I could pull the 2 out, but it's going to make fractions, and I don't want to deal with fractions. So if you know how to factor this Christie's way, go for it. I hate it. Here's how I like to factor it. So 2, -11, and 12. So 2x squared minus 11x plus 12. Do you remember when you used to multiply like this? So x squared, 3x, -2x, and -6. And that gave you x squared minus x minus 6. We can use this in reverse. So, oh, I hate this. That is so annoying. My palm erase isn't working. Okay, so I like to draw the box, and I can guarantee that this goes here, and that this goes here. And these are going to multiply to be the product of those. So 2x squared times 12 is 24x squared. Okay. Also, these numbers will add to be -11. So if I can figure out the two numbers that multiply to be 24x squared and add to be -11, I don't have to do any guessing. So what goes into 24? 1 and 24, 2 and 12, 3 and 8, 4 and 6. And this is a plus, which tells me my two factors have the same sign. It's either plus plus or minus minus. And in this case, it's going to be minus minus. So I know that these are both subtractions. And I also know that they have to have x's on them. Otherwise, I wouldn't have x squared. Will one of those sets give me a -11? -3x and -8x. And it doesn't matter where you put them. Okay? Now, What do these have in common? An x. So I'm going to yank out an x. If I remove an x, then what goes here and here? 2x and negative 3. Okay? Well, if I remove a 2x from these, what's left? Negative 4. So my factors are 2x minus 3 and x minus 4. Then we write equals 0 for both of those. Add the 3, divide by 2. X is 3 over 2. And add the 4. X is also 4. No guessing involved. Now, Christy knows I hate her method, and she hates my method, so it's fine. All right, let's do another one. I really like it because it's hard to make a mistake. 3x squared plus 10x minus 8. I can't take the 3 out easily, so I draw the box. 3x squared, negative 8, multiply those together, 24x squared. Two numbers that multiply to be 24 and add to be 10. Well, you might say 4 and 6. Will that work? No. Because in order to get a plus 10, I would need two pluses. Does 4 times 6 equal negative 24? Or positive? Oh, wait. I was looking at the 8. Oh, this is negative. That's my mistake. So 4 plus 6 is 10, but 4 times 6 is not negative 24. So that one didn't work. Which one will work? 2 and negative 2 and 12. So negative 2x and 12x. What does the top row have in common? X. Yank out an x, and I get 3x minus 2. Yank out a 3x, and I get 4. Make sense? All right. What about x squared minus 16? How does that factor? Positive 4, negative 4. This is called a difference of perfect squares. So it's an x to the second minus 4 to the second. And it factors into what we call conjugates. So these are conjugates. They're identical, but the last sign has been flipped. Okay? What about 25? That's weird. Oh, someday I want that to work. 25x squared minus 1. 5x minus 1. 5x plus 1. So the roots would be plus or minus 1/5. Okay? 49x squared plus 81. How does that factor? It doesn't. 7x plus 9. 7x minus 9. What's wrong with that? That does not make a positive 81. So what if I change this to a plus? Now, there's also a 0x hidden in here. Now the 0x goes away. They don't cancel. So what if they were both subtract? Then you're also not going to create a 0. So difference of perfect squares requires a subtraction. Now that's not entirely true. If you use complex numbers, let's do an easier one, x squared plus 9, that does actually factor into x minus 3i and x plus 3i. But those are not real numbers. And the reason they're not real numbers is if you graph x squared plus 9, that's what it looks like. And if you're asking, where does that graph cross the x-axis? It doesn't, well, at least not in any real position. So yi's, Well, when I multiply this through, I get x squared minus 3i plus 3i minus 9i squared. That goes away. I squared is just -1, and it turns that into a plus. So we will work on this assignment on Friday. See ya.